Kaje Sergio Servane Mandara Narajina, Dengindru, Jimabas says on the Belunum kind, Kanjer Nepal Jurus, Rub the Gaveric Budzimba Kaimba, Tetatam Jetaba Tambuko to be Suni Jinidrishi. Ladalam Mimji, Wombodan, Yajinla, Suchuji Chola Chawa Jabanam. Sangi Sungra to Jijing David Jurujurba Tetaji, Tambuchi Ninjinidrishi. Kando Choju Tongi Jidina, the Jilomar Jurba Kansu, the thing the written Bechi, Charbin Yamberdo, Batamchi Drishi. Namo like the Ludaniji, Dubum Dana Mi, Janam down to a Kunjitanam Chisamber. Tamjiki to Tagi Chuden, do Palenza, Lamaramboje, Tagi Jurabeme de June, Kadinjambukune Jisundi, Kuzundu Jimudu Saldo Son. Chabam College Jebodon, Janokava Sambasangaton, Gala Candid, letter them by Sumba Cheresella, Chasula Taki to Shaji, Jimmy to Jibunjam. Sergilumbo Dobrojibu Shaji Jabe, Shabla Chazola, CJ, Tamji, Shibumbo Chidu Basiji, Kunji Pajuwe Jambe, or La Chazola, Kanji, Tony Shinji. Punyalazo Don, Namtoni, Chojajabo, Dojijan, La Chaza, Corval, the Tarema to the Reji Jedultorena, Namlu Domayum La Chaza. Jambulku Truba, Tunglu Combo, Tusuchi. Chandrakirti Shechawe Lama Tela Chatsalo Shechatam Jibe Jamba, Duginjele to Betuji Sami Tilizebe Tonga, Jamgula Mejabla Goja, the Shechatam Jibe Jamba, Duginjele to Betuji Sami Tilizebe Tonga, Jamgula Mejabla Goja, the Shechatam Jibe Jamba Duginjele to Betuji, Sami Tilizebe Tonga, Jamgula Mejabla Goja. So there's a Lama Kinsewa. Shinji Love Lama Kinsewa, Tangman, Gao Lama Kinsewa, Children Signal Lama Kinsewa, Toji Lama Chenzo, Cheno, Lama Chenzo, Chino, Tejin Daniel Lama Jambal de Cheno, Chukitama, Ningi Color, Namsam Kangi Chadans, Nisim Tachi Tambe Mepa, Tegun Gambi Suji, Jasetu, Namtra Sapin Jachetala, Nirsuji. Yapjingin Lashantala Reva Machi Kanyanta, Ninsen, Kundu Jamian Kubi something Chichi Tuji Shu, Jungse Menyamanja Sangarangin Lebesi, Tadum, Junior Major Pado Jaption, Solvar Majoroji Ho Jian of Johnson Pamagazaro Dompola, and then Suki Mudum Nepama Junasius. Cordo Kandra Mambe Corachiji Jesota Dubdishi, Lobjerishi Guru Pema said Kusum Lama, such a Dutch. Tala Chodomonjo Modo Salto. Ujirambujela saw them Galjan Barjim Tunjin, Samba Drupa than Chodan Tomo Salto. So, Tashi Delek. Please generate proper motivation for the sake of the liberation of all sentient beings. We must achieve complete enlightenment. For that purpose, and only that purpose, we now enter into Madhyamika Avatara with proper hearing, contemplation, and meditation. So, in the last sessions, we covered until the fourth stanza, where Shantideva Chandrakirti is explaining the three different types of compassion a bodhisattva has. Now these are very, very specific Mahayana compassion, especially the last one. So now we will continue with the fifth stanza. Also, those of you who did not attend the live session last time, during that time we discussed and we found out that the self-commentary of Chandrakirti is translated and it's even published. So I hope to send email to all of you about where you can get the translation if you wish to have that. So the self-commentary is by Chandrakirti himself. Sorry. So then the next stanza is kundu zangbu membe ramnga gawala rabto nepa tene tangbo shi chao tene zungde tene tobar jurbayi changju semba shi je dani ji nyetos. Through intense dedication with Samantha Bhadra's prayers, he abides in perfect joy. This is called the first ground. From that point on, having attained this ground, he is hailed by the name Bodhisattva alone. So, now we're going to talk about the grounds, the bhumis. And why is it called bhumi? Here, in Chandrakirti's own words, he says, Chanju semba namje saba me bi shinyingje la so pe yonso semba ni chara number chewa na sa che chewa min todo yonde jiten do jurbe chiros. Because it is the basis, it is the support, it is the foundation of all the great qualities of the bodhisattvas, be it the wisdom of the bodhisattva or the great compassion of the bodhisattvas or the great activities of the bodhisattvas. This sort of basis, this foundation, all of the qualities of the bodhisattva depends upon this basis or foundation. Just like upon this earth, all the fruits, the trees, the mountains, beings, all of us depend upon the earth, the ground. So it is extremely important to us. It is the basis of our existence. Similarly, the realization of the bodhisattva is the basis of all the qualities of the bodhisattva. So this realization, seeing the emptiness directly, seeing the ultimate truth directly, this meditative state is called bhumi, is called sa, ground. So, and he says, in its own nature, we will not be able to distinguish between the realization of emptiness of the first bhumi and realization of emptiness of the second, third, or the 10th bhumi. There is no difference. When the mind sees the emptiness directly, there is no grasping, there is no afflictions, there is no ignorance. It's just wisdom that sees the ultimate reality. So in this aspect, there is no difference, he says. It's completely the same. Or not necessary to say completely same, but they are indistinguishable. But in their post-meditation, so this is the meditative state, that's when they realize the emptiness, they see the emptiness directly. So during the first bhumi, they see it directly for the first time. And then they continue meditating upon the ultimate truth more and more and more. And that's how the progression of the bhumis is justified. It happens, right? So, so in itself, in the sort of the bhumis themselves, there will be no difference. We will not be able to distinguish between the realization of the first bhumi or the second bhumi. It's not getting bigger or better or anything. But the potential of each of the bhumis, each of the sort of emptiness realizations are different. So for example, the first bhumi sort of, when it happens, the bodhisattva sees the emptiness for the first time. And then when that meditation is concluded, the potential of this realization is that in the post-meditation, the bodhisattva is very keen on being generous. As we will study more in the later stanzas, that bodhisattva will be willing to and actively seeking sort of opportunities to be generous. So that's how we know that, okay, so that's the bodhisattva is probably in the first bhumi. And then the second bhumi, again, the emptiness meditation is the same. They see the emptiness directly, so we will not know what's going on. But then after that sort of, let's call it meditation and post-meditation. So during post-meditation, they will be very eager on the practices of discipline. Now, it doesn't mean that they will not be practicing wisdom or meditation or patience, but they will be. But among all the paramitas, they will be most keen upon the practice of discipline. So that's how we know, okay, so the bodhisattva is on the second bhumi. And also during the post-meditation, the capacity, the ability of the bodhisattvas are vastly different from each other. So the first bhumi bodhisattva can do a lot, but then compared to the second bhumi bodhisattva, it's very, very small. It's very little. And so it goes until the 10th bhumi, the differences. So the meditative state themselves are indistinguishable, but through the qualities of the post-meditation sort of state, then we can sort of judge that the person has reached, on which level, on which bhumi. As Chandrakirti says, just as the sort of birds that fly in the sky, we will not be able to distinguish their footprint. They leave no footprint. So it will be difficult to say which bird is leaving a bigger footprint or smaller footprint. It's not possible. Similarly, during the meditative states, there are no difference between the bodhisattvas. We will not be able to tell the differences between the bhumis of the bodhisattvas because they are indistinguishable. Now, the first bhumi is called the perfect joy, Raptagawa. Raptagawa, they heard the translation you see in the root text is the perfect joy. Raptagawa can be perfect joy, or Raptagawa is actually meaning Raptu is this extremely joyful, being extremely joyful. I like that better. Raptagawa. It has this taste of being ecstatic, sort of almost jumping out of one's seat because now something has happened that had never happened before. And from now on, you are never the same. You are never, ever going back to samsara. You are on a one-way sort of track towards Buddhahood, and it's a guaranteed sort of now a path. So it's supposed to be Raptogawa, is this like supreme joy, or like extreme joy. So this is called the first bodhichitta, Simkipatampo, the first bodhichitta. So now here, Chandrakirti is talking about ultimate bodhichitta, and bodhisattvas who are called bodhisattvas due to their ultimate bodhichitta. And from this vantage point, he kind of makes sort of fun of those who do not have ultimate bodhicitta yet still call themselves bodhisattvas. And I really like that. It's like a push, or showing us that that there are so much more to achieve. So, when the bodhisattva reaches the first bhumi, then on this sort of stage, on this bhumi, the bodhisattva makes vast aspirations, makes vast dedications, and these are taught in the aspirations of Samantabhadra. In the Samantabhadra aspirations. So this is the first bhumi. He says this is the first bhumi. Now here again, ignoring the Tibetan commentaries, and which is easy because first of all I don't know many, and the ones that I have read I've forgotten them already, and so yes, so it's very easy to not talk about them. Now just here in the self commentary of Chandrakirti, he raises this point where he quotes I think Nagarjuna. I cannot find it, maybe. Oh, he doesn't quote Nagarjuna, but so Nagarjuna, in one of his texts, he says, "Jidar nyente tekbala nyente sa ne jesheba tejin chanju sembala tejin tekba chimbala chanju sembe sashetos," where the argument is with the Sravaka, and according to many Sravaka schools like Vaibhasika, they do not believe that bodhisattvas had bhumis. And so Nagarjuna says, just as in the Sravaka tradition, the Sravaka have 8 bhumis. Bodhisattvas in the Mahayana too, the bodhisattvas have 10 bhumis. Bodhisattvas have bodhisattva bhumis. So why cannot you just accept that? Why? What is stopping? What would be the rational reason why the bodhisattvas cannot have bhumis? So this argument, you see in the, for example, Abhidharma Kosha, where when Vasubandhu is talking about the 3 different types of noble beings. So then he says there are noble beings of the Shravakas, like when a Shravaka practitioner who wants to become Arhat. So the first time they see the emptiness of the reality, it's called stream enterer, Gundu Shupa, right? Stream enterer. So that's the first bhumi. And then it goes on till the 8th bhumi. And so stream enterer, resultant stream enterer, like that, Gundu Shupa. Chirongwa. Returner, resultant returner, non-returner, resultant non-returner, Arhat, resultant Arhat. Now, anyways, doesn't matter. So there's like 8 of them. Then he talks about, so he says this can take 3 lifetimes. And then he talks about Pratyeka Buddhas. And Pratyeka Buddhas, he says, can take 100 kalpas, 100 aeons. And Pratyeka Buddhas also have bhumis like this. So what it means is that you do not instantaneously become a Pratyeka Buddha. You do not instantaneously become an Arhat from being an ordinary person. So from an ordinary person to be an Arhat, you have to go through many different levels of realization, then you become Arhat. To be a Pratyeka Buddha, you have to go through many different levels of realization, then you become Pratyeka Buddha. But when it comes to Buddha, they say there is no such levels. So it takes 3 countless aeons Buddha to become Buddha. And then at the last life of Shakyamuni Buddha, he was born as Siddhartha. And during that life, he was still an ordinary being, not a noble being. He was still with afflictions, anger, ignorance, that's why, you see that in Siddhartha's life, there is Siddhartha's argue with others, Siddhartha marries, Siddhartha has children, all that. So he's an ordinary being. Siddhartha is suffering now. Siddhartha is hungry. Siddhartha cannot walk. So all these shows that Siddhartha is ordinary being. And when Siddhartha sat under the Bodhi tree, still ordinary being. But that night, he defeats the Maras. And then during dawn, when the dawn, the light of dawn hits the earth, hits Bodh Gaya area, instantaneously he became enlightened. So the journey between ordinary being to enlightenment is instantaneous. There is nothing in between. So this is very problematic for the Mahayanas, and we just don't, it's also irrational, and it doesn't make sense, and anyway, so there's this huge debate about this, that why cannot bodhisattvas have bhumis? Look at your progression. And now everyone agrees that the realization of the Buddha is highest among all. So to become an arhat, to reach that level of realization, if you have to go through that many levels of realization, or to become a pratyeka Buddha, to reach that level, you have to go through different levels of sort of realization, then of course it seems rational even to an untrained ear to reach the highest level. Of course you have to go through different levels of realization. But anyway, so there's all this kind of discussions. So here in the commentary, self-commentary, then Chandrakirti goes into those and he argues, so to speak, to that just as based upon sort of the abilities, the realization, the activities, there are 8 bhumis for the arhats. For someone who are on the path to become arhats, for the shravakas. Similarly here, based upon the abilities and the activities, we have 10 bhumis. And yeah, and here he also goes into what does it mean by bodhichitta. So the first thing is, what is a bodhi? And what kind of, what does it mean? What does it mean by bodhichitta? What is the meaning of this term? So here he quotes where he says that until and unless the bodhisattva becomes unless a practitioner generates the ultimate bodhicitta, they are called bodhisattvas who have not generated the bodhicitta. So now he's talking about the ultimate bodhicitta now, right? So not to get confused with, whereas Shantideva says, then is that as soon as you take bodhicitta, you become bodhisattva, right? So Shantideva was talking about relative bodhicitta, and here Chandrakirti is talking about ultimate bodhicitta. And he likens bodhisattva, an ordinary bodhisattva, to Chakravartin king, where he says the Chakravartin kings, when you look at the Chakravartin king, he doesn't look so much like an ordinary human being. It's very, very majestic and very different to look at. But he is also not as majestic as celestial gods and goddesses. They look better than Chakravartin king. So Chakravartin king is somewhat in between. Similarly, an ordinary bodhisattva, they are far superior than sort of worldly practitioners, and even sort of Sravakas and Pratyeka Buddha practitioners. He is far superior than all of them. He has gone beyond all of those paths. But he has yet not reached a bhumi of the bodhisattva. So he is in between. So as soon as the bodhisattva reaches the first bhumi, from that moment on, the bodhisattva is forever, so the person or the being is forever known as a bodhisattva. Will be called with this name. So like I said, then Chandrakirti talks about what does it mean by bodhicitta. So he quotes Prajnaparamita 25,000. Prajnaparamita 2,500 verses, where Chanju Simba Shechawa ni Jesu tobe simbe Chikla Date Kangi chotamje jisu tokshin shepaus. He says, a bodhisattva, the name bodhisattva is the name, or so the term bodhisattva, the meaning is just to is the term, sort of the meaning of this term is someone who sees the sort of someone who gains the realization, someone, a being who has gained the realization of what? Kanki. One who realized all phenomena. So here, realizing all phenomena is in the commentary. Here, I'm reading the self-commentary of Chandrakirti, and in between the self-commentary of Chandrakirti, I see these small notes from Khenpo Zhenga. Again, I will remind you, some of you who may have forgotten who Khenpo Zhenga is. He was the first abbot of Dzongsar. So when Khyentse Chögye Lodro established Dzongsar college, monastic college in Tibet, he wanted someone who could teach without sectarian sort of bias. And Khenpo Zhenga at that point was famed for having, for being quite non-sectarian, and actually for being able to teach according to the Indian commentaries. So overlooking the Tibetan commentaries, he would, and he had actually composed a commentary to 18 great Indian treatises, and his commentaries are said to be untouched by Tibetan ideas, and that many of his commentaries, actually he just quotes the Indian commentaries directly. He doesn't even change words, he just quotes them directly. So he's considered quite clean in this regard. So I'm reading his commentary, but I'm trying to ignore sometimes his commentary also, so that I suppose it's a bit conceited from my part, but yeah, so I see that the magic shouldn't just not shibao jidarshinas. So then how does a bodhisattva know all phenomena? Majungwata, Yandabar Majungwata, Lokbata, Teda Jitara Chibosuchewe, Takba Tetara Mahimbata, Jitara Chibosuchewe, Nieba Tetara Mahimbate, Tejir Chavisemba. Now, this is good. Majungwata. That bodhisattva knows all phenomena. How does bodhisattva know all phenomena? The bodhisattva knows that all phenomena, they are never born. They never sort of, they never, they're unborn. Majungwatas. Yang dabar majungwatas. There's utterly unborn. Lokpa. And then Lokpa is mistaken. So or Lokpa here. So then to think that such phenomena exist is a mistaken conception. And the next, and to know that the phenomena do not exist as conceptualized by ordinary beings. And phenomena do not exist as found by ordinary beings. Now, ordinary beings, we find phenomena, right? We can, we analyze and we come to a conclusion, and that is our finding. So the ultimate truth of all phenomena is not what ordinary beings have found. So anyway, he goes on and on and on to talk about what is the bodhisattva. So someone who knows this is a bodhisattva, he says. And first of all, what is the bodhi? He says, Changjubni, number matapos. Bodhi is non-conceptualized. That which is not conceptualized. Bodhi is madrupa. Bodhi is that which is not arisen. That which is never arisen. Bodhi is without sort of object. Anyway, so this is really beautiful. And those of you who have self-commentary, please read through this. He goes on and on and on, and I cannot go through the entire self-commentary, I'm afraid. So then now the interesting thing is he says, those who do not know this, those who do not know what Bodhi truly is, and those who do not realize what Bodhi truly is, yet they think that they are Bodhisattva, such a person is very far from the bhumis of the Bodhisattva and the qualities of the Bodhisattvas. They are very far from all this. So, and not only that, such a person is deceiving humans and gods and goddesses by claiming to be bodhisattvas. So, from Chandrakirti's sort of this type of point of view, or from the sutras that he quotes, only those who have realized ultimate bodhicitta is a bodhisattva, not those who have just taken bodhicitta. And actually there are Indian traditions who seem to say this, that some say that aspiration bodhicitta, that until you reach the first bhumi, you are merely sort of bodhisattva who is practicing aspiration bodhicitta, and only after reaching the first bhumi you become bodhisattva on application. Bodhisattva is practicing application bodhicitta. So, and many such sort of different teachings. What we believe these days, most of us, is we claim that, oh, this is according to Chandrakirti and Nagarjuna. But then the Indians, there were hundreds, thousands of different Mahayana teachers, and they have different ways of understanding and explaining what bodhicitta is and what a bodhisattva is. Who can be called a bodhisattva, or what kind of bodhisattvas? Anyway, so that's the first bhumi. Now, so then does it mean that the first bhumi, when you reach the first bhumi, you gain the realization and you get the name bodhisattva? Is that it? He says, no. All the qualities, you get many, many different qualities. That one I read. Dini tejin sheba namji rikso anke pate. Dini kundu jurwa sumbo tamje pangwayin. Chanju semba teni gawa chodo jurchangshin. Jikden kamja kunne yowar nupar jurbayins. Stanza number 6. He is born into the lineage of the Tathagatas as well. He has utterly purged the three binding factors. Such a bodhisattva upholds the state of supreme joy and has the power to shake 100 worlds. Right. So the first thing is, that such a person is born into the lineage, into the race, into the family of bodhisattvas, family of Buddha, of the Buddha. So what does that mean? Now, Chandrakirti himself, he says, such a bodhisattva has, gone beyond the scope, the state of being an ordinary person. Such a bodhisattva has gone beyond the state of arhats and pratyeka buddhas in terms of merit and wisdom. And not only that, such a bodhisattva is now on a path that is going towards the ultimate wisdom of the Buddha, like a sort of unmistaken, unstoppable sort of path that is going towards the ultimate wisdom of the Buddha. So, indeed, one can say that such a bodhisattva is born into the family of the Buddha, right? So, it's almost like someone is born as a prince, a crown prince. So then, in future, the crown prince will become the king. So the crown prince is on the way to become the king from the moment of his birth. It's a journey towards becoming the king. So similarly, a bodhisattva on the first bhumi now, the moment the bodhisattva has become, someone on the first bhumi, he or she is on this journey to become towards the ultimate wisdom of the Buddha. That. Then the second one, such a bodhisattva has abandoned the three binding factors. I think that's the translation. Kundu jorwa, binding factors. That's good. So again, in the words of Chandrakirti, he says, at that time, through seeing the non-existence of self, individual self, the bodhisattva sees the non-existence of the individual self directly, or the selflessness directly. The bodhisattva abandons view of grasping upon the aggregates. So because the bodhisattva sees the selflessness, bodhisattva no longer grasps upon the aggregates, his, her body, the five aggregates: form, sensation, perception, formation, and consciousness. So bodhisattva do not see one's own aggregates as truly existent anymore. Bodhisattva see them as like a dream phenomena, an illusory phenomena. So bodhisattva has abandoned as the grasping of the or grasping upon these aggregates as something truly existent. Bodhisattva has abandoned that. So that's one binding factor that is abandoned. And Bodhisattva has abandoned doubt. Says. Why? Because until Bodhisattva sees the ultimate truth directly, there is always this small space for doubt. You never know, because you never really seen the emptiness directly. So you never really know if the realizations are even a thing, if that's even possible to gain realization, or even if there is even such a thing as enlightenment, and because until you yourself experience it, you cannot be sure 100%. So there is a doubt, right? And this is gone now. Bodhisattva has abandoned doubt. No more doubt. Karma, emptiness, path, result, there's no more doubts towards these phenomena. So the doubt is abandoned. And Bodhisattva no longer has Sudim Doshu Chokzin is conceitment, arrogance, or thinking one's own discipline and practice as supreme, better than others. Bodhisattva no longer has that, because Bodhisattva has abandoned self-grasping. When you no longer have self-grasping, you will automatically not have idea that my practice is better than others, like that. So this also Bodhisattva do not have. And now these three are the binding factors to samsara. Bodhisattva do not have that. It's very interesting. Why these three? And when I think about it, it's quite interesting. but I cannot say it loudly because these are just my ideas, and I can try to make it nice, but let's not do that. But yes, so these three, Chandrakirti says, he himself states that these are the three binding factors that keep someone in samsara. So bodhisattva has abandoned these three. So, Chanju Simba tene gawa chodo durchang shings. And on this state, in this bhumi, the bodhisattva is ecstatic with joy. Bodhisattva experiences supreme joy, the likes of which the bodhisattva has never experienced before. So, which is why this state of bhumi is called the bhumi of supreme joy. And bodhisattva, and this on this state can shake 100 worlds, 100 realms. Now this one would if you just listen to it, it sounds weird. Like, why would a bodhisattva want to bring earthquake to 100 worlds, 100 realms? What is that? What is this shaking he's talking about? Now, I remember listening to Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche and him explaining what is this shaking, and him saying that sort of destroying the seed of samsara of sentient beings, so that they no longer suffer in samsara, showing them the path of reality, the ultimate truth. This is the shaking. This is the shaking. So Bodhisattva is able to do that in 100 realms. And maybe this has to do with, it is said in the first bhumi, the Bodhisattva can become 100 Bodhisattvas. You no longer have grasping to one self. So you can become 100 of you. That's your capacity, mental capacity, that you can go until 100 of yourself, so to speak. So, and none of them is like, this one is the original real one, and that one is not the real one, because they're equally same. So in this way, the Bodhisattva can do 100 different things at once and be in 100 worlds. So I'm guessing that's what it means that Bodhisattva can shake 100 worlds. Not that Bodhisattva is bringing earthquake and 100 world is shaking. Maybe that might even have happened physically. I don't know, like literally in this way manner. But what it truly means is, as Khyentse Rinpoche said, that Bodhisattva can bring liberation to 100 realms, and bringing liberation is destroying samsara, is shaking the samsara, shaking the world. Sanne chiji komar of the dover, tezi di ngendu lam tam tada gabarjur, tezi di susuchi with sanam tamjeze, dini papa jeba jita tether never tens. The next stanza number 7. Stepping on from one ground to another, he travels perfectly to the higher ones. At that point, the paths to all lower realms are blocked for him. At that point, all the grounds of ordinary persons cease for him. His is described clearly in terms akin to the 8th Arya. So, once you reach the first bhumi, then there is no such thing like, okay, you've reached the first bhumi, but no, you never know. You might not reach the second one, you might not reach third. This is impossible now. Nothing that stops you from going ahead. And you yourself have sort of realization of emptiness, no longer bound by many of the things that we are bound, ordinary beings are bound. So everything propels the bodhisattva towards the next state, towards the next stage. So once you reach the first bhumi, you are going to reach the second bhumi now at some point, and you're going to reach the third bhumi now, and there's nothing in between, sort of, from first you will go to the second. It's not like you reach the first bhumi, but then sometimes you fall in samsara for 1 or 2 or hundreds or couple of thousand lifetimes. Then you remember, then you go back and you practice, and then you go to the second bhumi. It's not like that. Never like that now. You will only go from bhumi to bhumi, ground to ground. So that's one amazing quality, or one amazing privilege now that you will get. Then and this is the so what does it mean? It means that you're never going to fall in samsara. It means that you're never going to be reborn in lower realms. So he says all possibility of rebirth in lower realms is gone now. No more. Is it these? And not only possibility of rebirth in lower realms, you are no longer ordinary beings. You're no longer sentient beings. You are beyond the path of sentient beings. We are mostly on the path of sentient beings. We are bodhisattva because we take bodhichitta vow, but we are on the accumulation sort of state, the path of accumulation. We are accumulating merit, we are accumulating learnings, we are accumulating, so still accumulating. And then comes the application, right? Where we apply ourselves more towards meditation and practices with more certainty, no longer just conceptualization, but some sort of meditative experience. So that's part of application. Still ordinary beings. So the path of seeing is this, the first bhumi. That is far beyond everything now. You're far beyond the path of ordinary beings. So it is exactly like the 8 sort of noble beings of the Shravakas. He says, just as the Shravakas, the 8 sort of bhumi of the Shravaka, similarly the first bhumi of the Bodhisattva has qualities. Now, the funny thing is the way of counting the 8th bhumi is opposite. Ordinarily, we count the path of seeing as the first bhumi. Yes, path of seeing of the Shravaka path is the first bhumi, right? And then we go, and then the 8th bhumi is the resultant arhat. You are arhat, But here, Chandrakirti, for some reason, counts it opposite. So the arhat, resultant arhat is the first bhumi, and then sort of the last one is the path of seeing. So he says, similar to, and how do we know this is because in the commentary, when he is talking about the 8th bhumi, or the 8th noble being, he is Sanipal Donna Papa Jundu Jupala around the Jisutumbe Papa Shotoba Toba Le Chundan Dati into Chumar Jurbatation. He is talking about the stream enterer, on someone who is on the Shravaka path, who wants to become Arhat. And the first time they see the reality is called stream enterer, Jundu Shupa. And he's talking about that. He's not talking about Arhat. Because rationally, when you say the 8th noble being, it sounds like he's talking about the last one. But actually he's talking about the first one. Now, for whatever reason, there is a reason. Maybe I forgot. I don't know. But anyway, the topic is so vast, and that you need a dedicated sort of mind. You cannot have like me living sort of as a family man, and then traveling somewhere, teaching something else, and then doing something else, and then trying to get back to this and trying to remember, oh, what did we talk in the last session, and trying to, how to say it now, bring the next session. It's really not a dedicated mind. You need, like in the monasteries, when we are studying this text, while we study this text for, I think, around 3 to 4 months, and then it's every day. So there's this continuity, and you're very dedicated. You're not doing anything else in between, and so that is a really good sort of stream of consciousness. That's what actually we need for this type of studies. But, well, it's not possible. That's why we have Bodhisattva project. Right, so he's talking about the first sort of stream enterer, the first path of seeing of the arahats, of the Sravakas, the first noble being of the Sravakas, which he names 8th noble being. So this, he says, just as your stream enterer, in the commentary he says, just as your noble being who is on the stream enterer, sort of bhumi of stream enterer, he or she gains realization, and as such a being, practitioner gains realization of the ultimate truth, abandons a lot of obscurations. So first thing is abandonment, right? Abandons a lot of, what happens when he's talking about to the Sravakas, what happens to your path of seeing, when you see the ultimate truth? You abandon obscurations and you gain qualities. You gain a lot of qualities. Exactly like that, the first bhumi of the bodhisattva abandons obscurations and gains qualities. Yes. Do I go to the next stanza or not? Is it too long a session? Oh, this next stanza. And this next stanza, the debate, there's just so much debate within the Tibetans, great masters, and I'm not talking about some abbot from some small monastery. No, I'm talking about debates, sort of differences between like the great Tsongkhapa, the Manjushri Tsongkhapa, and then the omniscient Korampa, and Sarah the Great, what is it again, Sarah Jetsun, who is considered like the emanation of Manjushri. So it's like, and not only them, like the Karmapas, there's so many. I'm sure I'm not even remembering half of them, most of them. So it's in a way kind of bit strange, and feels like I'm entering a new territory when I'm only looking at what Chandrakirti says and not talk about anything. So I have to sometimes redefine some of my understandings and try to think that, okay, that may be influenced by the omniscient Korampa, because I really admire his sort of way of approach to this text, actually. But anyway, Zogbe Chanjo Simda Tambo Laneta, Tuban Sunje Tanje Ransange Namni, Sonam Tagi Wangi, Pamji number Pels, Sadumpala, Teni Rindu Song or Loyan Lapra Jurs. Stanza number 8. Even when abiding on the first ground of the mind for full awakening, he surpasses those born from the sage's speech and the Pratyeka Buddhas. Through the power of his merit, and his merit increases even more. When at gone afar, he will also surpass them by his intelligence. What was that? Yeah. So, during here Chandrakirti quotes sutra, the sort of chronicles of noble Maitreya, Papa Chambe number Tharpale, where I'm not sure if it is the Maitreya who is speaking or Buddha, but it says, "O noble son, just as the son of a king ringbora malumba jabo yetsen lendembani lombo yetso gembo tsoro jurba thamde jabo rigi danye chewe wangi zijinen tos, just as a prince, even though the prince is not a king yet, but because the prince is, especially we're talking about crown prince, right? So how to say, is the prince is far superior, even though it's not yet learned or not yet so special, but it's just being the prince, just being a prince, is far superior than very learned and experienced ministers and generals, just because he is the prince. Similarly, bodhisattva on the first bhumi, they sort of they overpower or they outshine the arhats and pratyeka buddhas, because he is born in the family, in the race of the Buddha, right? Just that. And also he has merit qualities such as great compassion that overpowers, that outshines all the qualities of the arhats and pratyeka buddhas. And he goes on and to explain, just as the child of a Garuda who just came out of the egg, after a while, and even though it's a small bird, it's still Garuda, can overpower all the rest of the birds, right. So similarly, a bodhisattva on the first bhumi is like that. But on the seventh bhumi, now this is the name of the seventh bhumi, gone afar, ring du songwa, gone afar. On the seventh bhumi, or on the bhumi gone afar, the bodhisattva will not only outshine the arhats and pratyeka buddhas through merit and compassion, but also through his mental capacity, through his wisdom. Now they translate here intelligence. Maybe. So intelligence, yes, bodhisattva will outshine them through their intelligence on the seventh bhumi, or through wisdom, or through their mind. Actually, the term actual translation I think should be mind, because usually lo is always translated as mind, right? But anyway, because intelligence is very specific. But anyway, however it is, now this raises a lot of debate. How does bodhisattva on the seventh bhumi outshines arhats and pratyeka buddhas? Why does the bodhisattva on the first bhumi not outshine the arhats and pratyeka buddhas through their wisdom, through their mind? Because ordinarily their realization is far superior of that of the arhats and pratyeka buddhas. So they should theoretically be outshining the pratyeka buddhas and arhats already from the first bhumi, through their wisdom. But Here, Chandrakirti is talking about the specific quality of the bodhisattva, and that he then considers, that's how the bodhisattva now outshines, truly outshines the arhats and pratyeka buddhas. And this one he calls yulshepe cheva, the quality of knowing the sort of object of meditation, the quality of knowing yulshepe cheva. He calls it yulshepe cheva. Okay. So again he quotes the sutra, Dasha Bhumika Sutra, where he says, I think the Buddha says, O Bodhisattvas, just as a prince who is born to a king sort of outshines all the ministers, not sort of all the ministers due to being born in the royal bloodline, but not through his intelligence, through his mental capacity. But later, when he grows up and he becomes very learned, very intelligent, then he not only outshines the ministers through being born in a royal bloodline, but also through his intelligence. So similarly, that it's not only, actually it's not just Chandrakirti's idea, it's from sutra, sorry. Similarly, O sons and daughters of the victorious one, similarly Teshindu Chanju Semba Yang Semjema Tabdo Laba Semba Chewaniji Bodhisattva too, as soon as Bodhisattva generates bodhichitta, due to their great compassion, due to the quality of their great compassion, they outshine the arhats and pratyeka buddhas, but not through their mental capacity, mental strength. Loi topchi number chepini minus, but Chanju Semba Sadumba Dilan nebe Chanju Semba ni, but the bodhisattva on the 7th bhumi rangi yul shepe chevala nepes, because they have gained the benefit or quality of knowing their object, knowing their object of meditation, object of realization, they outshine arhats and pratyeka buddhas through their mental power too. 대질 대단한 링도 쏘마 코나 내 중내니 잠주sembe rangi loi top chepe chang nyente do rangsangge siji number jurji so omonamsene mayno shi so Chandrakirti says so one should know from these sort of teachings of the Buddha that from the 7th bhumi the bodhisattva outshines the arhats and pratyeka buddhas also through one's mental strength, mental capacity. Now what is this? Now all the arguments, debate here is about identifying what this mental strength is. What are you talking? What is Buddha? What was Buddha talking about? And here I must say, for example, so all this is Chandrakirti's own writing, self-commentary, and in between these small writings, these are sort of commentary by Khenpo Zhenga. And what he says here is very similar to what omniscient Korampa says. Now I tried to look for what does it mean? What does it mean by yulshe bechewa, the quality or benefit of knowing the object of realization? That sounds very bad. I don't know. I hope it's translated better in the translation of the self-commentary. I don't know how to translate it. But okay, so what does it mean by the mental strength here? And then I did not know what to do. And so because Chandrakirti is also not explaining what is this mental strength here, then, or I missed it. I will read it again. But I then went to the 7th chapter of this text. The 7th chapter is actually just one stanza. It's about the 7th bhumi. So there, he's talking about the quality of the 7th bhumi. And there he says that there he says that on the 7th bhumi, the bodhisattva is capable of entering the meditation of cessation. Now, cessation is the name given to the ultimate truth. So basically, bodhisattva is capable of entering the meditation of ultimate truth within an instant, in and out. Like within an instant, bodhisattva enters the meditation of ultimate truth and also out. Sort of within an instant, it's done. It's performed within an instant. So that, in the 7th chapter, during the 7th bhumi, Chandrakirti says mentions it as sort of one of the main quality of the bodhisattva on the 7th bhumi. So I'm guessing that is it. That is what he's talking about here. That why does a bodhisattva on the 7th bhumi outshines, what is it? Pratyeka Buddha and Arhats through their mental strength. Like how does they do that? So I think that's how it is done. That during this, that the bodhisattva is capable of entering into the meditation of emptiness instantaneously and coming in and out. It doesn't mean that bodhisattva could not do that before. They could, but it was not instantaneously accomplished. Anyway, so we stop here, and we're still not done talking about this exact same stanza, because here, then in the commentary, Chandrakirti raises some very important points again, but let's stop here for this session. Right. Sonam di tamji ziba ni tumni ni bedana pamji de jega na jibalon troba zibe zole do ra sho do dungal menji budewa tamji jungen tembanya da kurti danche de yuring ne jurji lu jal go nyer go jin dungen ne banam siring ne me bozum su ta do dewa dembara sho changju semjo rumbo je ma je banam je ban jeba nyamba me baya gone gondo pelwara sho. May I in all my lives carry far the weight of Buddha Dharma, and if I am not capable to do so, may I always be worried about the longevity of Dharma.